Hey guys, it's Jeff Quintin here at Jeff Quintin TV, and welcome back to my blog. I'm your host, Jeff Quintin. Today I have a very special guest that's joined us. This is Bill McMahon from the McMahon Agency here in Ocean City, and these guys are the leading insurance agency here in town. They do a majority and most of all the insurance here in Ocean City and along the coast here at South Jersey. So I brought Billy in here today to share with us some of the concerns, some of the thoughts, some of the questions that are being asked with regards to all this information, all these things happening here at the shore regarding flood insurance, homeowners insurance, everything, how it's affected all of us here. So again, I'm just going to jump right into it right now. And if you have any questions, thoughts, again, right here at the bottom of this blog, certainly email to me, send your comments through. We'll get the answers right back to you, okay? Because we may not cover everything today. This kind of just be a frequently asked questions overview. So, Bill, go ahead and tell our viewers today, your name, contact information, if anybody has any questions directly with you.
Okay, Bill McMahon, McMahon Insurance Agency. It's 1-800-448-6340. Is our 1-800 number. We have 3 different departments. We have commercial lines, a very good condominium department, and personal lines department. They'll be happy to answer all your questions. There's a lot going on, as Jeff said, at the shore. A couple things that have happened is there was a new law enacted by Congress, the Biggest Water Law, that was signed. The good news is there's a 5-year extension on the National Flood Program. There's a lot of changes. The problem with the National Flood Program, it's broke. It was broke after Katrina, and Superstorm Sandy put it further in debt. What we're seeing in that law was really to get some rate on properties because the program is so far in debt, they need to make up the money. The second thing happening in New Jersey, after Sandy, we were in a mapping before the storm, remapping all of New Jersey for the flood maps. Those flood maps were dated. They were told they're about 30 years old, and they needed to be updated. They were 90% completed in updating those maps when the storm hit, and they thought, let's get these things out as quick as possible so to help the people rebuild.
Okay. All right, so we're talking about these new flood maps, right? And this one, when they talk about it, they talk about advisory maps, advisory-based flood maps. Is that what they're referring to? Yes,
great question. They're advisory. What happened on January 24th, the governor said use those maps as law for rebuilding and elevating. In Ocean City, we got very lucky. As much of the damage we see here in our town, we were spared the worst. I mean, you go up into Monmouth County, LBI, they really got nailed, and there's complete islands gone. So they need to be completely rebuilt. So the governor acted to say, hey, use these maps as a basis. They're going to be the future, so if you're building now, use them. So there's some properties in Ocean City that need to come down because they were the damage was too great from the storm. They need to use these maps, is what we're being told. The rest of us, they're advisory flood maps. They're not complete. When I said they rushed these maps out at 90% complete, what I'm told is one of the things in the maps they did not take into consideration yet is a study on the wave action and how it hits the island with intervening structures, meaning dune systems and on the bulkheads on the bays.
Got it.
So these are raw maps showing, so those V zones that you see in these maps now, they can be changed later.
All right, so Bill just mentioned about the zones. There's the V zone,
yes,
and there's the A zone.
Yes.
Now the V zone, I'm told, stands for velocity zone.
Correct.
Right? What does this mean? Tell them what these zones, what that actually stands for.
The V zone is velocity, and to be in a V zone, it means a house can take, that area of the island can take a greater than 3-foot wave. That wave can be created by water, can be created by the wind making the water higher. So if you only have 16 inches and the wind gets that up to over 36 inches, it can happen. Then that's how you get a greater than 3-foot wave. And the National Flood Program says that 18 inches, a wave at 18 inches can cause substantial damage to a property. In the A zone, they're not going to take they're going to take a less than 18-inch wave, or a less than a foot wave, I'm sorry. In an A zone, it's basically rising water, and it's more prone than there's B zones, C, and then on the mainland, or areas that are not likely to flood. the A zone is more likely to take rising water.
Okay, so wouldn't you say then every bayfront home or every beachfront home on all the islands would be considered a V zone? Or is it true that some zones you could be on the beach and you have a big dune but not be in a V zone?
Actually, a lot of Ocean City is in these new advisory flood maps are in the A zone because believe it or not, the last street to flood in Ocean City is Central Avenue.
Right.
So, you know, that's the exit. A lot of times out of town, you drive down Central Avenue and get out on the...
even though it's closest to the beach.
It's close to the beach. And right after the storm, that's where you saw, if you drove down that street, it did not look like there was a lot of damage. So the front part of Ocean City is actually a very high part of this island. Right. So it is in an A zone. Okay.
So with all the zones and everything else going on, so how does this now, these new maps, affect current insurance policies? So for example, if, and again, we're going to bring Brad here in my office over here shortly, but for example, Brad's home, he has a home in the Gardens, single family home. You know, it's a 60, 70-year-old home built in whatever it was, 40s, 50s, whatever it would be. Great area, but his home's not elevated. I mean, it's up elevated. He's got a front porch, like an old seashore cottage. Mm-hmm. So how does these new maps, let's assume that he's in an A zone, okay? Because this area isn't going to really get a whole lot of water. How does that affect because his home is so low as far as the first floor elevation? What's going to happen there?
The new maps, they were using a 1929 datum on those maps. Now they're moving to a 1988 with the new maps, which will mean for what I'm told a negative 1.3 on your elevation. So if you have a 10.5 foot elevation, now you're going to be at 9.3.
Okay, so when you talk about elevation, when they're referring to elevation, that's the lowest first floor habitable elevation they're referring to?
Well, the base flood elevation in the area is where they want to see that lowest habitable floor. Some areas are 9. They say, hey, this is where it doesn't flood at 9 foot. Some of the gardens are in that area. Okay. You can start building that first floor at 9.
So everything starts from the base flood elevation, meaning that's the area, the land or the street area, whatever the neighborhood.
Where they project. I'm sorry, the base flood elevation is the 100-year storm. Where they project a 100-year storm will not flood. So you may need to build, you'll see houses on pilings, or they'll build up the foundation a foot or two off of the ground because the ground's at 8, and then to get to that 10 or 11 they'll raise it up a little. Okay, so they're gonna look at the base flood elevation and then determine what the lowest floor elevation is? Is that what we're talking about here? The lowest floor elevation for rating your flood insurance, the lowest floor elevation, wherever equipment or that lowest piece of equipment under the floor joist in an A zone, that is where they'll rate the flood insurance from. Okay. And so if somebody, let's say, is 1 foot above, with the new maps and everything that's going on, how is that going to affect rates? Is it going to be much effect at all, or if they're above? The maps are, again, they're still advisory, so they're going to change. As I said, they didn't complete a wave action into there, so they rushed these out to help the state of New Jersey rebuild as best as they could. We were supposed to get new map revision in August 2013. That's when these maps were supposed to come out. Got it. And that will have additional detail. So houses that are showing on this new advisory map that are in a V zone now, that those zones, I'm told, will change. And the government said, FEMA has told us they usually come out with very conservative maps first. So they always want to give the worst possible news. They don't want to come back and change and say, oh, we gotta actually make this worse than we originally thought. They want to come out and make it sound as they want to move back and say, hey, it's better than we thought it was. And that makes sense when you think the fiscal cliff at the end of the year. Yeah. We were all worried what's going to happen, and it didn't turn out to be as bad as we thought it was going to be. Okay. So, all right. So what's the best place to go, or where does a homeowner start to find out what their current elevation is, and then what the new advisory maps are, whether they're in the V zone or the A zone? How do we figure that out? A couple of things. You can look for your base flood elevation on your flood insurance certificate, and if you have it, or your insurance agent, we have a lot of them in our office. We try and keep as much of that information as possible. We'll be happy to walk you through that, give it to you. I happen to have one right here. This is what you're looking for. Perfect. we can walk through here, and the base flood elevation is somewhere in this number here. There's a bunch of numbers in here to read, and the base flood's in there. And again, we can walk the customer through that. You don't have to be our customer. We'll gladly hold your hand and get you to understand the information. Okay. That's what we're here for. The other thing people want to look at right now is a map. It's region, the number 2 coastal, and I guess you can put that on the blog. That stands for FEMA 2's region. That's the region we're in. Okay. Again, the number 2 coastal there, and then you can find the new advisory flood maps. It's really neat. You can plug in your address, and they will dial in and give you what the information they have right now. Okay. And again, those maps are changing. Okay. And you know what? I'm going to provide that link here on the blog, so you can specifically click on that and then put your address in. It'll tell you exactly which zone you're in. I know exactly what you're talking about with regards to that. Okay, good. So somebody today that has a small single home, and let's say they're in a V zone, what's their options then? Their options are, I mean, and again, what I'm being told is that the federal government, they want these homes raised up, right? Yes. So, you know, what happens? I mean, these homeowners, if they don't raise their homes up, then they're going to have, are these flood insurance premiums going to be way through the roof? Or? The premiums, the writing is unfortunately on the wall, that they are going to raise the rates. The opportunity here, if you had a small beach cottage in Ocean City that did receive substantial damage, your insurance policy does have up to $30,000 under increased cost compliance coverage. It's built into the policy. If you had greater than 50% of the assessed value of the house destroyed, you can file a second claim. You come into our office and say, here's my letter. You go to the city first, get a letter saying, hey, they received more than 50% of the damage, substantial damage during the storm. We file a second claim. They'll pay to help elevate. If you want to demo your property, they'll pay the demo, and then new pilings for the new property, stringers, things like that, to help elevate the building and get it out of harm's way. Okay. And so let's flip over then to a condominium policy. You know, we have a lot of 2-unit condos. Yes. You know, whether it be in a B zone or A zone or whichever zone you may be, you have a homeowner's policy, flood insurance policy split between 2 owners, right? Yes. Will these also premiums go up on condominiums as well? Again, it all depends on elevation. I mean, in the program, unfortunately, all the premiums are going to be going up. Right. It's a matter of where they're going up. Some are going to see more substantial increases than others, but the program is out of money. It's been out of money, so the premiums are going to be going up. Got it. Okay. Is there any other questions that you're receiving right now that I haven't asked that maybe the homeowners need some answers to? One of the concerns is the Biggest Waters Act. That's the act that's signed to extend the flood insurance program for 5 years. In there, if you're a secondary homeowner and you're pre-firm, meaning your house was built before 1974 and you're not up to the flood codes, we've been told you've always been subsidized. Believe it or not, then those premiums are over $2,000. That's the subsidized rate they're telling us. Those numbers are going to be going up for those owners 25% a year until they get actuarial rates. They're saying over the next 5 years they expect increases. Okay. So we can have that conversation if you want to give us a call. We can get into more detail about each person. I can tell there's going to be a lot of different questions that come up specific to each homeowner and the property they have, and I'm just trying to get some general information. I'm going to bring